Yeah, we'll correct that in public.
Copy and paste is only 3
It doesn't have a date audit on it.
Fine, I'll just hide it.
Scroll up.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the time set at 6 p.m. on February the 13th for the Roy City Planning Commission. We will begin this meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. We have Boy Scouts here tonight. I've asked Scout Kendrick to please stand up. Will the rest of you also stand up and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you, Kendrick. The first item on the agenda is declaration of conflicts. Are there any members that are on the commission? Do they have any known conflicts at this time?
No.
There being
No.
all nays, we will proceed. The first thing on the second item agenda, but the first thing we're going to do is approve the January 9th, 2018 regular minutes. Anybody have any corrections or changes to those minutes? Do I have a motion to accept the minutes?
I move that we accept the minutes of
Second.
January 9th.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There being none, they are approved. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have a good-sized audience tonight. We do appreciate everybody coming out. The way that we're going to proceed here is, well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to correct the agenda item and from, which currently says February 13th, 2017, we're going to make that February 13th, 2018. We will proceed in the order in which the items are listed on the agenda. You will notice on the agenda that items 3, 4, and 5 are declared as public hearing agenda items. We will proceed by allowing the proponents, the people who are asking for whatever they're asking for here, to speak to us first. After they have completed their comments, we will then allow those, any that may oppose. And he says no. We'll let Steve do it.
Add some.
Opponent, me, then you open up the
Yep.
public hearing.
Opponent, Steve. This is my first meeting as chair, okay? Nobody noticed, okay? Okay, that's interesting, okay. But we will proceed as Mr. Parkinson says we will proceed. And then we will simply go down the rest of the minutes.
Would you say that all over again?
Yes, ma'am, I will.
It opens up with the meeting for the people presenting this land?
Yes, whoever has asked for this item to be on the agenda, they are called the proponents. They're the ones that speak first. After they tell us what they want us to do, Mr. Parkinson will give his comments. He is the city planner, and so he will tell us what the city staff thinks of this. After his comments, then we will allow anyone who would like to speak in opposition. Have I got that right?
Or proponent, yeah.
Okay.
For or against.
Okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood one more time. You go first, and then it's yeas and
No,
nays.
you're,
Yes.
Got it. Okay. We're going to do what he says.
You come in real clear when you talk loud, but I can't hear you when you don't talk loud.
That's because I move away from the microphone and I haven't got it yet, okay? I'll try to do better.
Well, I heard you this time.
Good.
I appreciate that.
And speaking of that, anytime anybody comes up to talk, you must come up to that microphone at the podium and speak into it loudly so we can all hear. I just did that as an example of what happens if you don't speak right. Okay, this is A public hearing to consider a request to annex into Roy City a 17.19 acre parcel located approximately at 4200 West, 6000 South. Mr. Parkinson.
Proponent, yeah.
Proponent here.
Then I've got it wrong again.
Yeah.
Proponent, you, then them.
Yeah.
It's not the way I,
So
okay.
it gets his name and address.
Okay, please state your name and your address.
Derek Terry, 1263 Sir Barton Drive, Kaysville, representing representing Woodside Homes of Utah. And we are requesting to annex into Roy City. We were part of Hooper. We came to the commission a while back to get services from Roy. The commission told us we have to come into Roy to get those services. So that's why we are requesting the annexation into Roy, so that we can use our land.
Okay. Are there any questions? There being none? Are there anybody else that wants to speak in favor of this?
Turn it over to Steve.
No? Then Steve?
Okay, good evening. As mentioned, this property is located at approximately 4200 west, 6000 south is indicated on this, on your screen. It is, again, 17.19 acres. As Derek had mentioned, they were trying to get it developed through Hooper City. They couldn't get water. They had a difficult time getting sewer through North Davis Sewer. Hooper City is unable to provide any of the services. So they did come to Roy City to find out if we could provide some of those services. The city council had mentioned that they would need to annex into the city for that to occur. So here we are today. Again, just in your staff report as mentioned, the annexation, this area is on our Roy City's annexation declaration plan. This was back in 1984 when this area was declared to be possible annex into Roy. Hooper, some odd reason, took it first, but that's either here nor there tonight. Zoning-wise, the unfortunate part is our zoning map, or future land use map, sorry, doesn't look at this area for what it future could be. As in if it should be medium density, low density, high density, commercial, it doesn't look at it. It was very similar when the Yeoman's parcel came in that was just to the east of it. You got that larger white space right next to the gray canal. When the commission had looked at the Yeoman's property a couple months ago, we went ahead and looked at to the north, it being very contiguous to that, and recommended that it would be medium-density single-family home, or single-family dwellings. So in the case of the future land use map, staff would include the same thing, or conclude the same thing, that this area would be ideal for a medium-density single-family residential zone, or designation. Also, within the zoning map, again, because it's not part of Roy, the zoning map doesn't look at it. I didn't highlight the parcel, but everybody should, after the last few times, kind of identify where it's at. It's that larger piece that kind of has Hooper written on it. You've got a couple zones that are in that area. The light green to the north is R110. The dark green to the north is RE20. The yellow is R18, and then the olive green is R115. So again, you've got single-family residential there already. The R110 and R18 are more of your medium-density single-family zones. The olive green is more of your low-density, because again, that's 15,000 square feet per parcel. So with that, staff would recommend approval both of recommending a designation for the land use, future land use map of medium density, and recommending to the council again for the zoning to be R18, similar to the Yeoman parcel. Any questions?
Any questions from any of you members? I have a question, Steve.
Okay.
For the record, parcels of land here that obviously belong in Hooper, we're looking at that. Has notice been given to those residents as well as the Roy residents?
To Hooper residents, yeah,
Yes.
anybody within 300 feet of this
Okay.
17.9 acres was given.
The statute requires 300 feet. and
Correct.
we have
I go
provided-
301 in case there's a little
In
parcel
case
that
you
might
make,
have.
them- yes, okay.
Now, to caveat that, I didn't notify Clinton City residents. They're in Davis County. I don't have those records to be able to do so. But Woodside Homes, who's owner of this property, owns the development to the south of it anyway, so most of them.
So
would be-
notice was provided according to law?
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. Parkinson, can we actually do both public hearings together for both the,
3 and 4.
both of the considered annex and then the consider for the preliminary subdivision?
You probably could just open up both of them at the same time. They would just have to clarify which one they're going to comment on. That would probably save some time.
Since it's the
but-
same property.
Right. And I can, if you wanted, I can go ahead and kind of talk about what the subdivision aspect of it is.
Well, let's follow procedure then. Let's let whoever is the proponent for item number 4, is it, come forward and say what he's got to say, then we'll come back to you.
Okay? Come on up there.
Should have left him up there, yeah.
Do the
That's
best
all
we
right.
can with what we
Yeah.
got. Please again state your name and
Bet.
address.
Derek Terry, Kaysville, Utah, 1263 Sir Barton Drive, Kaysville. And yes, we're the applicant. We are applying, as you stated, for in the R18 zone. That we believe is consistent with the area. The staff report details what we're going for and why we believe it's advantageous for us and the city.
Okay. Any questions by the commissioners? No? Mr. Parkinson?
Again, subdivision-wise, within your staff report, you did receive the DRC, which is the Development Review Committee, that consists of the fire department, planning, engineering, public works. We even have the police there. Who am I missing? I think it's everybody. They do look at it, review it, do submit comments, so the fire department does have a few comments. Engineering had a paragraph, but there's things that the proponent's engineer and our engineer need to sit down and kind of go through before he can do a true review. You've got everybody, but staff doesn't feel that they're not unable to meet all the requirements to meet the zone, or the subdivision ordinance, in order for the subdivision. So again, staff would recommend approval. Now, all these approvals are caveat that, 1, the de-annex out of Hooper, and 2, annex into Roy. If neither one of those 2 aspects work or come to fruition, all our approvals would be null and void because they're still part of Hooper.
Does everybody in the audience understand what he just said? Okay.
There would, in order for the general plan amendment, the rezone or the zoning map amendment, and the subdivision request to be actually approved, they've got to de-annex out of Hooper and annex into Roy. Because Roy doesn't necessarily have authority to tell Hooper how to subdivide the land. So that's one caveat, that they have to provide those, that declaration and the resolution number or ordinance number from Hooper, de-annexing it out of Hooper City.
Right. Anybody who wants to speak against approval?
Hang on, Mr. Chair. I make a motion that we open up the public hearing for both items 3 and 4, being the, too many pieces of paper, to open up the public hearing to consider requests for future land use and zoning designation for a 17.2 acre parcel that is to be annexed into Roy City at approximately 4,200 west and 6,000 south, and also for the public hearing for the request for preliminary subdivision approval of Crestwood Estates subdivision located at the same address, approximately 4,200 west and 6,000 south.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Now anybody.
Now that we're in public hearing,
That was a mouthful.
yes, but he reads well. So anybody wants to speak against this matter, please
Or
do
for.
so.
Or for.
Or for. State your name and your
Address.
address.
Travis Price at 4071 West, 6000 South. I border the property. That is I'm just that corner above Yeoman's there. So,
Before Mr. Price continues, I would like the record to reflect that he and I have a business relationship. He provides landscape and snow removal services to the HOA on which I belong, and he also contracts with my wife to do our lawn services. We have not spoken about this, except for the fact he called me and asked me if this was on the agenda. I told him it was, and if he wanted to say anything, for him to show up. Is that correct, Mr. Price? Proceed.
thank you. I know you probably can't comment. With the properties, all I can try to push forward is to try to keep them bigger lots. Those 30-acre lots that do border, I'm .6, the ones across the street are .4, .6. They are a little bit bigger, everything that borders that land. The hope is that we can try to keep that a little bit bigger. I know that to try to keep down the traffic on 6,000 and just better neighbors and keep the house values up. I also want on the records, if it does go forward, that before any, before any land is developed and they are putting that road in next to mine, that if there's a fence or whatever, I want my fence to make sure it stays, or they replace it and that, make sure that fence is in place before anything's happened on the building. So if we can put that in the records or whatever it is, something that just, that my property stays as is. I know the road and the curb and gutter is gonna be coming through there on my fence, so, just for the record. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Natalie Batten. I'm not sure where I live, but my address is 3903 West, 6000 South, and at this point, I think I live in Rupert, Utah, which is somewhere between Roy and Hooper. First of all, I question not being able to supply water and sewer to this property. The North Davis sewer line runs right down the middle of 6,000 South, clear down past 4,300 West. The Hooper water already services about 3 of the homes on the north side, and Yeoman's property and Mr. Price's property already have city water with a line that starts at 4,300 and has to come up 6,000 to service them. So when both lines are going right past this property, why can't they develop in Hooper, because the services are right there?
Well, let's take them as the questions come up. Mr. Parkinson, can you
Do you want me to answer now or after?
answer now?
Thank you.
Well,
Very-
according to Hooper Water, they do not have any lines in this area. That's according to Hooper Water. We're not going to go out in the street and verify whose water line is whose. Roy City does have water lines in that road. North Davis Sewer, yes, they are able to provide that service. When they were trying to develop within Hooper City, and Derek, correct me if I'm wrong, they were able to get the lines shallow enough to reach that line. But it's the water that they don't have.
But the water line goes right,
I'm
so
It's
It's Hooper's water decision.
if I stood here and lied, I would be in trouble. There is a water line already up that road.
That's not what he said. He
What?
said the water line is there, belongs to.
Well, Hooper Water has informed Roy City, or the developer, that they cannot provide culinary water in that area.
Okay, but we will move on, because I have quite an agenda for you. I'm smart enough to know that I have no defense as to this property being annexed into Roy and zoned for development. It comes under Utah State Law, Title 10, Municipal Code, Chapter 2, Parts 4, Section 419, which states the most number of acres rules over the decision as to who wins. However, the one thing I do question is the reason they are requesting annexing into Roy City, which is because Hooper City cannot provide services for this property at 4200 West, 6000 South. Yet I was at the Hooper City Council meeting on December 7th, and on the agenda was preliminary approval of the Halls Crossing subdivision right there at 6,000 South and 4,300 West for 52 lots. It seems that that was approved, but then we've already discussed the water line is there, and they say they can't provide the water line. So we're in a stalemate there. So I will move on. The next question. So if Hooper can provide services at the same location, why did they say no services to the property that is right there? Or is it the request to annex into Roy City because Roy City has a higher density zone of R18 than Hooper does? And with the question, maybe it's time to start having all parties speaking at planning and city council meetings speak under oath, pledge to the truth. This way all parties are protected. My question is, when they petitioned to annex into Roy City, which zone did they request? It must have been R18. My next concern, if this property is annexed into Roy City, the map on the public notice letter for February 13th, 2018, planning meeting shows 6 properties across 6,000 to the north from 4250 west to about 4047 west going east as joining properties considered in this annexation, as well as the property at about 4047 west, which is also requesting annexation into Roy City at an R18 zone, which is coming up for approval soon. The map is incorrect because there is a 6,000 South road between the front of all 6 of our properties and the 2 properties annexing in. Our properties do not join each other. I've lived at my properties at 3903 West, 6,000 South since 1962. It was just a dirt farm tractor trail from 3,500 West to just past the 3 houses going west, one of which was mine. That road ended there and didn't connect to 4,300 West because it was a swamp and flowing water the rest of the way down to 4,300 West. When the paved road was built, it was put in by UDOT, starting at the bottom of 6,000 South, where it joins 4,300 West, and went east on 6,000 South to the irrigation canal on 6,000 South and ends. Interestingly, in checking with Weber County Assessor's Office and Recorder to get a copy of that road on Friday, February 5th, 2018, the recorder, Jeremy Matthews, says it is not a Weber County road or a Roy City road, but looking at the map, arrows indicates that it probably was a UDOT road. But I needed to talk to UDOT to confirm that, which Mayor Dandoy did, and they really didn't think it was their road, but really couldn't confirm it either, that it wasn't. To confirm this statement that UDOT put the road in, I lived there and watched UDOT put it in, and Mr. Elam owns the property at 3903 West and has lived there since 1992 when they moved there. Their relative who worked for UDOT told them that the road in front of their property was a UDOT road from 4300 West to the canal, which they maintained and would be plowing for them. At this point, UDOT looks like it still is the owner, but Roy City claims they have been the one maintaining it the last few years. Interesting again. So back to the rulings. If an annexation creates an island of the property owners, that they would also be pulled into the same city as the annexation. Now, did you understand what I just said? If the property owner's property becomes an island because of the annexation, we will automatically be pulled into the same city as annexation. First of all, with the road between us, our properties not joining the two properties that are requesting annexation into Roy City, the 6 properties on the north side of 6,000 South do not create an island. They are a peninsula, not an island. Also, there are 3 more properties on the north side of 6,000 South, which join our 6 properties that are which join our 6 properties. They are already Roy City because they didn't annex into Hooper years ago when the rest of us 6 properties did. They do not create an island. They became the same peninsula that we will be. If so, those 3 properties stayed out of annexation into Hooper, then it works for us also. 6 properties now not annexing into Roy City, for we do not create an island. We are the same peninsula they are. Another concern, if our properties are pulled into Roy City, our properties would lose the grandfather rule to keep our equestrian rights when our properties either are sold or passed on to family after death. This would also drop our property values because we are set up for animals which they could no longer have in Roy City. Also, a financial concern would be an increased cost for garbage, sewer, and water. Comparing Roy City cost of these utilities, the dollar figures given to me by Mayor Dandoy, over what I pay now, it would be about $40 more a month or a little over $400 more a year. Also, my property taxes last year was $1,250, and just adding the 37% increase in Roy City property tax last year, it would adjust my taxes to $1,700. Just between these 2 comparisons, that I would be almost another $1,000 a year increase to me financially. And I live on Social Security widows benefits, and after my health insurance is taken out, I receive exactly $1,100 a month to live in. I'm 73 years old, and I sure don't plan on going to work so I can still live in my home because of big money and greed, changing my property to something I don't want or can even support. Since the 1800s, our government has been taking land away, starting with Native American Indians, and here we are into the 21st century, and our governments, being city, county, state, or federal, are still taking our land. There really is something wrong with that, as far as I'm concerned. To date, there is still no laws protecting the small individual landowner from this. I've lived on my property 56 years, and as I grow older, I have come to realize that you spend the first half of your life working to acquire everything, and you spend the second half of your life fighting to keep it. Each one of us over the course of living here has dealt with a lot of dirty politics. I will give you one example of that. This involved 4 properties, one of which was mine, when the A Land of Honey subdivision was developed. When they got to the back of 4 of our properties, we received a letter from Weber County stating we were to come to a meeting because of a problem with starting the houses at the back of all of our 4 of our properties. It seems after Mr. Aland gave North Davis Sewer the easement off their sewer line, he didn't have enough room to put his houses in. When we got to that meeting, we were informed they had already worked out the problem by turning each house this way, that way, so they could build them. All is good. About 4.5 years or so later, after that, one of the property owners sold their property. In doing so, found out that Weber County sold 8 feet in across each one of our properties to Mr. Aland so he could build his houses. When we confronted Weber County and asked, how could you do that? Their response was 8 feet of each one of our properties showed sold because of delinquent taxes. Oh, it gets better. Each one of us said that was impossible, for each one of us had always paid the full amount due to the tax notice, due on the tax notice each year. So I asked, okay, if they sold the property to Mr. Aland, who got the money from the sale? And if we paid taxes on that 8 feet of property for years, then don't we, or that we didn't own, shouldn't we be getting a refund? Our answer back was, what are you complaining about? We will give you a quitclaim deed for your 8 feet of properties back to you, and there's no more problem. Simple again. But you know what? There is a problem with that to this day, because all of those homes are still there. They do not meet code because they are too close to our property lines. Yet there is no problem as far as Weber County is concerned. So, if we lie to the government, it's a felony. But if they lie to us, it's politics. I did file my petition with Amy Morrison at Roy City on January 18th, 2018, stating that as a property owner at 3903 West, 6000 South, I absolutely oppose being annexed in to Roy City for any reason at any time. I have often wondered if being on a planning or city council board, if part of your criteria is to personally go and look at the properties that are on the agenda before that meeting is held. If not, maybe it should be, so you can see the area around the property and what kind of impact it would be on surrounding property, size of lots, size of the houses, if the roads are set up for what kind of volume of traffic, schools, and if it would conform with existing lifestyle. In closing, I hope.
Ma'am, let me interrupt you for just a second. I think we take it that you object to this agenda item, and mostly under any circumstances. We have a larger number of people here who I would like to move on. Can you please just close up
I
your
object
comments?
if they annex in, I don't create an island, and make sure you don't annex me in because you're saying, and I have one closing thing.
Please go ahead.
In closing, I hope each one of you really heard the message that I was trying to relay to you. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Next.
Good afternoon.
Your name?
My name is Bruce Elam. I live at 3904 West, 6000 South, which is just kitty corner to the property which is being proposed to annex and subdivide. I've got a couple things that I'd like to bring up. When we first bought this home 25 years ago, my brother, who worked for UDOT at the time as a snowplow driver and as a mechanic, did in fact plow that road on several occasions as my young children would stand out on the road and wave as he would honk and drive by. That road was maintained that way until the light green area was annexed into Roy City. And at that time, Roy City began maintaining part of that road. They did not maintain the parts which were on the south side of the road, which were on Hooper City, and in front of the parcels that were in Hooper City. They did not maintain those portions. Okay, they only maintained the portions which were in front of the Roy City residents, which is okay. That's what they pay their taxes for, to take care of that. As far as the water availability, Jim Laguerra, who lives in the tallest of those 6 properties, has Hooper City water. That's where he gets his water from. When we moved in, we had a connection for Hooper City water in the corner of our lot. Sorry. And so the availability of water, that's something they're gonna have to work out with Hooper City, because the water is there, as well as the sewer is there. They built a new trunk line, which goes right to the east of this property and cuts across the road to my property, goes up the street, and then heads into the yellow area. So it's a brand new, it's been there less than 10, 15 years. Brand new, they abandoned the old sewer line, which runs kitty corner across my property, to put that in. Probably one of my biggest concerns is the acre size. The size of the lots which were there to maintain our community. We have seen in the yellow area some concerns with the lot size, with the stability of the community. We have several people who move in and out all the time. It's just the nature of those smaller lots with the starter homes on them. People can afford them, they buy them, they move in. Live there for a few years and move out. And in fact, in that yellow area, there are only 10 families that have been in that area longer than 15 years out of 300 homes. And when we take a look at the lot size, which is in this area, when the light green area was subdivided and put into this area, we worked with Roy City very proficiently with the planning board at that time, so that those lots which were near the larger lots would also be larger lots. And it was approved so that the lots on the east or the right side of that light green property would be smaller to match the yellow area. And as they move progressively west and north, that those lots would be 1/3 acre lots to approximate what we have with our 0.6 acres and our full acres and the 0.5 acres that are there. And so as we take a look at those lot sizes, we have the property in the light green, which most of those lots are 1/3 acre. We have the area which is on the south, which I understand Woodside Homes is also approximately 1/3 acre. We have the area in the olive green, which is 1/3 acre. The Yeoman's lot was zoned for R18, but their plat shows 1/2 acre lots. And so to put those in as 1/4 acre lots it's kind of an affront to the community. Now, realizing that Hooper City has designated some 1/4 acre lots because state law requires them to have some high-density housing in their lot, should not play any role at all in Roy City's decision to maintain the lots of that community. Another thing we have is these 6 parcels that are sticking out there. We know we received notice that Yeomans were being annexed, that they requested annex. We received notice that this property is being annexed. We have never received any written notice at all that we are designated to come in with this annex. Not one word. Not once did we receive a letter of that. And in fact, your notice on your agenda today says that the notice was posted on the property in Roy City boundaries is not true. That notice was posted on the south side of the road, which is in Hooper City boundary at this present time. Another thing we have is, as Mrs. Benton pointed out, was the animal rights issue. Right now in Hooper City, I have a lot which is a little bit over 26,000 square feet, and I am zoned in their city on their definition as 1 animal unit. And it takes a real bit of digging through Weber County Code and Hooper City Code to figure out what that actually means. When we bought the home, it was zoned A1, even though it was on 0.6 acres. It was what they called an existing non-conforming lot, which is what all of those lots were designated as. So we had the property rights of animal rights with an A1 zone. We've been told that if we come into the city, that we'll maintain those property rights. However, there's some differences in, what Hooper City and what Weber County and what Roy City allows on those property rights. But as we take a look at those rights, one of the things we were told that if we ever sold, those animal rights would go away. However, you can see the one little yellow property that comes down and meets the gray. That lot is half an acre. It is in Roy City. It has been sold 6 times since we moved in. Each time it has been sold as horse property. If that's the type of zoning that we are given so that those rights continue, then we can talk and we can work those things out. Also, the lots which are to the east of the yellow property, which is an equestrian zone, supposedly. Those lots are smaller than mine. And they have animal rights in perpetuity.
Are you talking about the the 2 dark green parcels?
No, I'm talking about
Light
east
green.
of the yellow, which is
Oh,
in
okay.
Holly Acres on the other side of the canal, less than a
Okay.
quarter mile away from us. Those are larger lots. They're, half-acre lots and larger, and they have animal rights. And we were told in the last, we've had this debate 4 or 5 times since we've lived there. And each time, it's just been, okay, let's just leave it alone, let's work with it. The last time, one of the former city managers for Roy City said, well, you guys would lose your animal rights, but I live in this other area and I'd get to keep mine. And I just that kind of lets me know where we sit, so.
Excuse me.
You gotta wait till he's
You
through.
wait till he's through, and then I'll give you the opportunity next.
If there's any questions on the dark green plot that's on the right side. that
Please-
we just
please be-
mentioned,
please be
that's
seated.
us. We own it.
We're good, thank you. Proceed.
And again, my biggest concern is the lot size and the maintenance of those animal rights, so, thank you.
Thank you.
Justin Schinsel, 3901 West, 6000 South. Couple of questions and issues with the reannexation. As you motioned and put the 2 agendas together, being a public works inspector for North Ogden City, I know a little bit about codes and so on and so forth. And apparently, what happens is I don't understand how that subdivision could even take place with fire code, being that there's no 2 points of ingress and egress off of different roads. They both filter onto 6,000. There actually needs to be a point of ingress and egress on 4,300, which there is lower in another county. So, who gets the call? Clinton or Roy City for fire protection. That's just one of the issues. The other issue is it's also a swamp. I mean, until you guys see the geotechnical report that states that there's groundwater at 3 feet, how can you place a zone on that? That's kind of a no-brainer in where I've been and where I've worked. Not only that, I think we're putting the cart before the horse on the fact where everything hinders on de-annexation out of Hooper. Well, when we sat in a meeting with Hooper, they were in preliminary to change the whole city boundary to anything east of 4300 being Roy City. Well, I've never heard anything from Roy City saying, hey, we want to take this whole thing on either. So therefore, there's a conflict of interest between the two cities that needs to be resolved and needs to be talked about, and possibly a planning commission between both cities to figure out, are we both in agreement that either we do the whole thing, we do part, we do some. Those are some issues that I've seen and I've been aware of. I thank you for you guys' time and all that you guys do for the city. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else that would like to address this item?
My name's Tammy Yeoman. I live at 4047 West, 6000 South. Mailing address is Roy, currently Hooper, requested for an annex. I have a couple of things that I want to address. We built the home that the Prices live in, that is that rectangle piece on the south side of 6000. We built that home in 2005, and when we built that home, we had to get a letter from all of the entities requesting services, whether they would give us services, whether they would not give us services. Hooper Water, Culinary Water, would not provide service to us. So we came to Roy City. They were willing to provide water for us. That is the case for the home on 4047, which I reside in, the one on 4071. I can't speak for the other homes. I know there is the end of the trunk line of the Hooper Water District. It is at the property at 4071. In the meetings that I have attended about this property and that is proposing to be annexed, the Patterson property, it is my understanding that even though that trunk line runs all the way up, that they still cannot provide water above 4300. It is also my understanding that North Davis Sewer will not enter into an agreement with Hooper to provide sewer services for them, and Hooper is not willing to run their sewer trunk line beyond 4300. So with that information that I have, I totally understand why this piece of property is requesting to be rezoned, as well as our desire to want to put some homes on our property. And I know that it doesn't always matter what is and around properties, the decisions that are made. There is a gamut of third acre, quarter acre, half acre, 5 acre lots there. I feel like I've learned a lot in the last 2 years as I have pursued learning both sides of being a property owner and also having a desire to want to develop property. And I do feel like that Woodside subdivision is within their rights to request this annexing and rezoning, and I'll leave it at that.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any others that would like to address this issue? There being none, I would wish for a motion to close the public hearing.
I move that we close the public hearing.
We need a second.
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
The ayes have it.
Let Steve answer some.
Now, the proponent can come and answer any questions he wants, or I can answer all of them. He just don't want to come on.
He's saying, yeah, go ahead.
I don't blame him.
Where to start?
At the beginning.
Well, I guess the issue is, we have some claiming that Hooper can provide the water, and you have been told by the water folks at Hooper that they cannot provide the water. Is that correct?
Correct.
Or they won't?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the story is that we're planning staying in Roy. We're planning staying in Hooper. We came to Roy to get the services from Roy. Roy said, you cannot have these services unless you come into Roy, and here we are.
Okay.
Quick-
One of what hasn't been mentioned is stormwater, a major one that cannot be provided by Hooper, has to be provided by Roy. Another reason why Roy said it has to come into Roy
A
to be able to
quick
do that.
clarification for me. It is your understanding, since you've dealt with Hooper, it is your understanding they could provide the water, there's a trunk line that is fairly close, they choose not to do so. Is that correct?
Correct. Anything is possible, but they have chosen
Okay.
not to.
Just, thank you. Go ahead.
So does this property annex that we're at, the annexation we're doing, is this taking in some people's homes too?
Well, that comes down to the state statutes.
Okay.
Again, we can't create islands within that. So I know when there were some people here, when Yeomans were coming in and annexing, asked if that would affect them. And at the time with the Yeomans coming into the aspect, or into annexation into Roy, it really wouldn't, because there was still, you got the Woodside home or Patterson's property, Mr. Price's property, and then across the street, you had those 4 homes that were within Hooper. So it'd still create kind of a peninsula, but they'd still be part of Hooper. When Patterson or Woodside Homes came in to look at it, if we annex both Yeoman's and Woodside Homes properties, these 7 parcels now become islands unto themselves. So they would have to be basically pulled in at the same time as annexation. The reason why nothing has taken place on these 7 parcels is I'm still looking at Hooper's ordinance to see, okay, what animal rights do they have? What lot sizes or requirements, what, how everything works, and can we compare it to our RE20 zone, which does allow for horses, cows, chickens, what have you. So those are the 2 dark pieces that are on the map, and also the east side of the R18 that, hopefully I don't get your name wrong. Ilum?
Yes.
Okay, did I pronounce it right?
Depends on which half of the family.
How he pointed out that, those properties already have animal rights that are above and beyond, the yellow and the 2 other greens that are there. So staff is still looking at those to try to compare it, and we'll give a report to the council when it all comes up.
Mr. Parkinson, was the mayor still working on his ordinance to allow the rights to transfer to owners afterwards? I know he had mentioned that to.
Well, the mayor
To
doesn't
fall
need
under-
to do anything, because state statutes are the one that dictates that. As long as animals stay on the property and there isn't a period of more than 1 year without them, what's called non-conforming rights or grandfathering rights continue. So if you had 2 horses and 2 cows and you were allowed at that time, Hooper, it was illegal at that time with Hooper City, you get annexed into Roy, you continue to have 2 horses, 2 cows, you sell the property, the new owner comes in and has 2 horses, 2 cows, those rights continue. The
Okay.
only time those can be taken away is if you voluntarily remove those
Okay.
those, and it's longer than a year.
If the new owner comes in, doesn't have any animals, 2 years go by, they sell it to a new person, that new person no longer has the animal rights. Is that correct?
Correct.
Everybody understand that?
So it's not just I sell it and therefore the rights are gone.
Okay.
Grandfathering rights are they're protected. The state knows that. They don't want
Okay,
people
that's what I was
lose.
trying to make sure of.
Now, again, as I'm looking at it, if we can make them RE20, then there's no grandfathering on animals. It might be they're only allowed to have 2 horses, but they have 3, so they'd have a grandfathering right for that 3rd horse, but horses in itself would be allowed. So that's something I'm trying to navigate through their ordinance, which is, as was mentioned, difficult to go through. It's just not set up any way I've ever seen before, so I'm trying to go through that. So that one's still trying to be addressed. I don't know if Derek, you want to say anything, or I'll keep going.
Keep going, you're doing great.
If it's a UDOT road, I know this was kind of a question. I'm not sure how that pertains to annexation into a city. I mean, we've got 1900 West, 3500 West, 5600 South that are owned by UDOT, and they're part of Roy City. We just don't do the maintenance on it or the plowing. I did receive a letter from Brent D. Young, who is a UDOT district engineer, and he says 6000 South is not a UDOT road. So when you start looking at, and when I called Mr. Jeremy at the county, he said that it might be, because he wasn't sure, but when you start looking at all the subdivision dedications of road, the light green, which is the R110, the dark green, and the yellow, all dedicated half that road to Roy City. When the Price's home was subdivided, half that road was dedicated to Hooper City. So again, as you go through the road, and the county owns slivers, and they don't want anything to do with it. They don't want to maintain it, they don't want to plow it, they don't want to fix it. So it really comes down to the 2 cities, and Roy has most of it, so Roy takes care of it. Let's see. The unfortunate part is financial issues, I really can't comment on. That's, depending on which way you look, it can affect it or it can't affect it. There's studies each way, and it's very difficult to say yea or nay that subdividing this into our 8,000 square feet lots is going to be more detrimental to people's property values than R110. Most homes are still built maybe within a few hundred square feet, between R110 and R18. So continuity of neighbors, I haven't really looked for research on that, if it's different between, smaller parcels to larger parcels. I really don't know and couldn't comment on that. Trying to go through all everybody's questions. Egress. Let's see.
Fire egress, yeah.
On 6000 South, there are 2 points of egress. Again, if you head south into Clinton City, there are additional 1 or 2. Derek, I can't remember what I wasn't privy to the Clinton side of the subdivision. If there's a point on
There's
43.
2. There's 2 on the Clinton side.
Of course, Roy City would be the first fire to respond, but Clinton and Roy have interlocal agreements that
Yeah.
if there's a big fire,
They're going to roll anyway.
both are going to come. The fire department has made comments, so they weren't concerned with 2 points access or 1 point access. So I'm not going to assert their authority and say that they don't know what they're talking about when, they've provided comments. It's a swamp, groundwater at 3 feet. We know that. So when their geotechnical came up, it has to be slab on grade. They can't build basements. They won't be able to. Now, if it's developed as an R18 in Roy City or R2, which is 20,000 square feet in Hooper, homes are still going to be built and they still have to abide by that geotechnical report. They're going to run into water. Some areas it might be higher, some areas it might be lower. I've seen, parks being built where one baseball diamond was hard as rock, no problem, 10 feet over, it sinks a truck, just because the groundwater is different in each place. So, our general plan gives a comment, every subdivision plat that we know of west of the railroad tracks has a caveat on there, it says, groundwater is high, varies on location. So they have to abide by the geotechnical report on if they can have a basement, if not, how they can build. I think the biggest issue on Hooper Water is really the size of line. They may have a line, because we've heard a couple people say that they get Hooper Water, but I don't think it's big enough to provide for additional homes beyond what they already provide. They'll need a 6 or 8 inch line to be brought down, and I don't think Hooper Water is prepared or willing to do that. And, I don't know if, they would want to cover the costs. So, the sewer, I'm really not sure how it was going there. I know that the developers were looking at North Davis Sewer to try to get theirs into the trunk line that's running next to the canal. Again, not quite sure where they ended up or how it was done, but I know when they came to us asking for culinary water, storm water, and sewer, the council basically said annex into Roy. I think I answered everybody's questions.
How many square foot are these houses planning on being? Just as a
I
question.
don't know off the top of my head, I'd say between, I want to say 2,000 to 3,000 square feet. Because we're building the same product in Syracuse, we're familiar with it, it's the same product in non-basement, and so we do bonus space over the garage. We make them larger homes to compensate for
It's
the
just
lack
right
of
behind
basement.
where this is, right?
Are you building ones in Clinton?
We are building ones in Clinton. Those ones do have basements because they have the land drain and we're able to do it. Yeah. But with this, the product we'll be using is a product that we're doing in Syracuse where
Okay.
we have the same high water table that does not allow basements.
Is that the one over by 700 in Syracuse?
It's off of Gentile and about 2,000
Okay.
west. It's down by there's ski, major landmarks of the ski lakes down there. If you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer any other questions you have. I just don't want to resolve any issues that you don't have.
Any questions from any members?
I think we got it.
Thank you so much. We
you.
appreciate it. The chair will entertain a motion on the combined agenda items 3.
Now we have to do.
For motions, they need to be separate.
We have to have motions that are separate, even though we've combined the discussion.
Just a discussion, yeah.
Learning curve. Okay, on item number 3, is there a motion for item number 3?
Working
I
on
move
it.
that we go out of public hearing.
You gotta get out.
We already did that.
first.
Oh, that was the comment? Okay. Never mind, I'll retract that.
Okay. I still need a motion.
Can I ask a point of information, please?
Sure, come on up.
In the original plat for this property that was proposed.
You
Up
have
to
to
the
come,
mic.
you have to come up to the microphone. We will record this, and we can't hear you from back there.
In the original plat for the Patterson property, what was the original lot size that was approved previously by Hooper City?
There
No
wasn't
idea.
one.
We don't have,
Derek could answer that.
We have a map of it, but
May not have that information.
Yeah, because it's Hooper, I won't get that information.
State your name again.
Derek Terry, and I do not know the exact lot size.
At least according to Hooper City's zoning map, it's 13,000 square foot.
That sounds right. But I don't know for sure, but that sounds right, about 13.
Now, if that's what their subdivision was for, I don't know. But that's what the zoning allows.
So are we recommending approval of this, or are we?
Yes, you recommend approval.
Go
Another
ahead,
point.
state your name again.
Bruce Elam,
Yes, sir.
Also, a question is, what is the lot size of the Clinton City development, which is just south, which is connected with Woodside?
Unknown control.
We don't know because we don't have that information
Do you
in the
know
cities.
Eric? Clinton City?
I believe it's about the same. I didn't come prepared with information on other developments, so I can't
Okay.
tell you exactly what it is.
So are we recommending approval on this one?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we recommend that we approve the plan, general plan for future land, change the plan for future land use map designation from medium density to single-family residential with a zoning designation of R18, single-family resident, located at 4200 West, 6000 South.
Do I have a second?
You want to add the conditions and the annexation?
Yeah,
The
based
pending
on the
annexation
conditions
from
of
Hooper?
Hooper de-annexing and the city annexing that property.
Now do I have a second?
I'll second that now.
All in favor, aye?
Nope, roll call.
Roll call.
Roll call vote on this one.
Because it will be an ordinance when it goes to the council. Commissioner Collins?
Aye.
Commissioner Andell?
Aye.
Commissioner Karas?
Aye.
Commissioner Bills?
Aye.
Commissioner Spar?
Nay.
Nay, ooh. Commissioner Brand?
Yay?
Commissioner Payne?
Aye.
Motion carries 6-1.
We'll proceed with, then, is there a motion for item number 4, the public hearing to consider the request for a preliminary subdivision?
Mr. Chair, I make the motion that we recommend approval of the request for preliminary subdivision for Crestwood Estates subdivision located at approximately 4200 West, 6000 South with the conditions outlined in the staff report.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Roll call again?
Commissioner Spar?
Nay.
Commissioner Nandel?
Aye.
Commissioner Brand?
Yes?
Commissioner Karas?
Aye.
Commissioner Bills?
Aye.
Commissioner Payne?
Aye.
And Commissioner Collins.
Aye.
Can pass it 6-1.
Oh, no, another public.
Just to let everybody know, this item will go on to the March 20th City Council meeting. At that time, I should have an idea of how to put Hooper City's regulations into Roy or vice versa, so that, because I don't want to create any non-conforming rights more than I have to. Again, because it's one of those things that if we can allow animals, let's allow animals so there isn't that vague necessarily. Because again, it's really hard for future generations, 2 or 3 homeowners later to say, I have them, and then someone has to go prove when did they leave, when did they come back, and vice versa. So the more we can keep nonconformities, the better. It's easier if it's a nonconforming lot size, because that's going to remain the same regardless, or nonconforming to setbacks. And the home's going to stay there. But when you start getting into other types of rights, then I'm going to try to resolve as many as possible. I know the mayor will want me to as well. So again, March 20th is when this goes to the city council.
Wait a minute. Okay, that concludes all of the items that are here for a public hearing.
No, we
No,
got.
there's still one more.
No more.
A different,
Number 5.
I can't read either. Okay, let's move to number 5.
No,
Not,
We get placed in all this.
not, I'll give you an opportunity later on, but that public meeting, that public hearing for the item you're talking about is closed. I have to move on to the next one, which is item number 5. It's a consider a request to amend the following maps of the property located at 4060 and 4088 South Midland Drive. The proponents for, who put this on the agenda, the people who want us to do this, would you please Step up to the mic, state your name and your address.
My name is John Heiner. I and my partner own the property at 4,000 South and Midland Drive. We had about 16, 17 acres there that we've been developing over the last 10 years. You're probably familiar with the property. We have operations there of Jiffy Lube and McDonald's and O'Reilly and Maverick and a couple of dentist offices.
Is that
and
mic
so
still on?
Pardon?
So we're just having trouble hearing you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
Probably
was trying to
just
speak
need
up a little bit better.
Yeah.
That's fine, thank you.
So anyway, we have about 16 acres there that we've been developing over the last 10 years or so, 9 years. We have the property that we have remaining, which is that parcel behind the parcels along the streets, has been a little bit too small for big box pads. We've marketed the thing to users like Lowe's and Home Depot and Smith's and so on. And the parcel is a little too small for that, but it's a little bit too large for just a flex retail, which we're proposing that would go in there, which meets the code. So that leaves a remainder parcel in the back against the single-family residential. And we're proposing a zone change there from the community commercial to R4, which is a multifamily zone. We see a couple of advantages to this. First of all, it makes something viable on the back part of the property. And then also it provides a transition from the commercial to the single-family residential that is adjacent to our project at the moment. Also, I attended a meeting, I would guess it was about a month or two ago, regarding the Front Runner station, and they made a proposal to the city council, and I think the planning commission was there as well, as to how the city might consider higher density residential in some of these areas closer to the Front Runner. So that's our proposal. We'd like to continue to develop the commercial on the back of the out pads that are there already with the businesses I've mentioned. And then that remainder parcel in the back, we'd like to have zoned to R4.
Does any of the members have any questions of this gentleman?
Okay.
Mr. Parkinson.
As mentioned, this is a request to amend the general plan or the future land use map. I'm changing it from commercial to, and it sounds horrible, but very high density, single or multifamily residential. And the zoning map from community commercial to R4 multifamily residential. As you can see here, and as mentioned, there's McDonald's, Jiffy Lube, Maverick, is it AutoZone or O'Reilly? O'Reilly Auto Parts. There's a dentist office to the north that's on 4,000. Over where it says Midland Drive, there's a car wash being built right now that you guys are aware of, well, majority of you. Again, here's the future land use map. Again, they were just looking to amend it to allow for a very high residential, multifamily residential, excuse me. And then zoning-wise, you do have kind of a melange of some zones that are in there, from R16, R17, R18, RE20, community commercial, and then on the west side of Midland is West Haven City, which is zone commercial. If Walmart was coming, that would be where Walmart was going to go. I'll keep saying was. I don't think they are ever going to come. Anywho, as the commission, needs to look at it, is what's the best zone for this property to develop? As John had mentioned, it's too small for a big box. It's not big enough for a Walmart, a Smith's, or what have you that would be great to come. We'd love to have them, but they're not looking for something this small. And then it's too large for medium-sized boxes. So they're trying to look at ways of still developing the land, still getting a product. He had mentioned the Focus Roy plan that was just adopted in December. If you remember, and I should have got a picture, this area was part of the area that they were researching, but it's not necessarily the front-runner station area plan. So when they looked at it, or at least within that plan, they did talk about mixed-use type of development where you have commercial and residential together. I don't think this is really one of those areas that could work, just mixed use. That doesn't mean that you couldn't have it more horizontal rather than vertical. But the other question you gotta ask yourself is what's the better buffer between single-family homes and commercial itself? Where commercial is gonna be a lot higher vehicles, a lot more noise. There are ways of buffering that type of stuff. Many cities have got that. We do as well, but would multifamily be better suited between the two or as commercial? So that would be something you would need to look at. They did provide kind of an idea of what it could look like. Again, staff hasn't reviewed it on aspects of code. If this number of units or this size would meet our ordinance. To the south side, which is below the color, and it's not in your staff report. They're looking to have an assisted living facility come. That is a permitted use both in the community commercial zone and the R4 zone. So regardless of what zone would come, this particular use could still come and be built. So the thought is they'd have that to the south. It might go a little farther north than what they've got identified. But then in between that and the dentist office, provide some areas for multifamily. Again, it hasn't gone through code. I don't know if you could have that many units. Nothing is, but this, again, is just kind of an idea of how it could be developed if they go through with it. Again, you got some flex pads to the east or west of it that would be behind McDonald's, Maverick, and all those that's facing Midland Drive. So again, zoning practices, it's always better to have buffers in between single-family homes and high-density commercial or high-volume traffic commercial. Boy, I'm getting tongue-tied as we go. So planning-wise, it makes sense to have some sort of multifamily in between. But again, that's a question you guys get to answer, not me. But staff would recommend approval of both the modification to the general plan from community commercial to very high residential, and from the zoning map from community commercial to R4.
So, Mr. Parkinson, on our map, so you're saying right behind the dentist office and stuff, in McDonald's, they want to maintain a flex park commercial, is that correct?
Well, I don't know if you can see, I can point. So dentist office is on the southern part where the assisted living would be. They do have kind of two pads where strip malls, flex development could occur. So they still have room for commercial to develop between McDonald's and, if it is approved, the residential. Any other questions? If not, then Chair, public hearing?
Yeah, I have a question. Right now, the way that it is zoned, that someone could come in and put a commercial activity, is that
Correct.
correct? And what the proposal essentially says is they want to put in some high-density housing as to be a buffer between the existing houses and any future commercial development. Is
Correct,
that
that's
also
what their
correct?
hope is, yes.
Right, and conventional businesses now are on the road,
Right,
and this is a buffer in between.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Uh-huh.
Okay, thank you. Then do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we go open public hearing.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right. Anybody have anything they want to tell us? This is the public hearing. It is now open. You may approach. Please stand close to the mic State your name and your address.
Danny Penrod, 4177 South, 2725 West. What exactly is high-density family living? Is that apartments? Talking townhouses?
Yes.
Because townhouses may be doable. If we're gonna put a 4-story apartment building behind my house,
At least the site plan that they provided, it would be townhomes. And that, it could
locked
be,
in stone, if we change it to R4, then can they change that to apartment building?
the planning commission can make recommendation that it be townhomes within their motion, and when it goes to council, they would hear that, and again, they could take that in consideration.
But there's no.
But unless the council locks that in, it still could be up in the air. I don't think the developer wants to do high-density apartments, 4 floors of.
Yeah, I just didn't know what high-density multifamily
Yeah.
home living meant.
Yeah, in our ordinance, it just says 12 units per acre. Now, if that's 12 units of townhomes, 12 units of stacked apartments, that doesn't identify between those two.
When I bought this property 11 years ago and built a house on it, it was commercial, and that was my understanding, it was always gonna be commercial. Obviously, things change, but 10 years ago, it was commercial when I bought it. So I like to stay commercial, but townhomes are doable, apartments. Hot.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Scott King, 2564 West, 4000 South. My biggest concern with high-density apartments is I live on 4000, and I know the idea is to get people to and from the track station and have lot of homes there. The problem is that street, if you've ever lived on it like I have, the infrastructure there is not there to support the amount of traffic between apartment complexes and the track station. There's some times when we come home, if you catch a train there, I mean, you can't even turn off of 1900 to even get onto 4000 if the train backs up, because traffic flow is already so high coming down there. And I know the thought is, with commercial, most people stay to the main Midland Drive Road, which is as bad as it is. It's pretty good around that area, but you get down towards 4800 South, and it's congested because of the flow. But with apartment complexes up there and that constant flow of traffic, I mean, we won't be able to get out of our driveway. It's already a challenge. So that's probably my biggest concern with that, as far as high-density living, is just the road. There's just not. You can't get up and down the road. It wouldn't work. And then if you guys do decide to change it, I would request that you guys look at lowering the speed limit to 30 miles an hour below as you come off the hill from the railroad tracks west. Because by the time, with kids, my kids have to cross that street to get to the bus stop, to get to Valley View Elementary. And you go stand out there as a parent, and you wait for people trying to get across that road first thing in the morning. And it's 35 mile an hour, but people are doing 45 all the time because they get away with it, up to 50. I mean, it's a drag race track. And to put that many more apartments and that many more people up and down that street would be just absolutely a nightmare. I'd rather keep it commercial.
That would be a city council action.
So,
Well, I'm still taking notes, it's fine.
but
30 miles an hour? Is that what you
Yeah.
said? Okay.
that would be, I mean, if you're gonna do it, and then, or if townhomes or regular homes, that would be one thing, but to put that many people in that small of an area would be really bad. So, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to comment?
My turn now? Can I speak on?
No, I will give you your turn later.
Well,
Right.
she may have a comment on this
If you have a comment about this item, yes, ma'am, it is your turn. But if you want to talk about what we've talked about previously, it'll be later. Thank you.
My name is Matt Zaversnik, and I live at 4132 South, 2725 West, just down the street from Mr. Penrod. I, too, was concerned about what this very high-density, zoning was going to be. I myself am not opposed to like what you've got up on the screen there with the assisted living, or even some, townhomes that are going to be, the level of our homes. If there's going to be all of a sudden 4 stories that I'm staring across the street at, Yeah, I'm totally opposed to that. When I moved in there, same as Mr. Penrod, it was all commercial. I was cool with that. I love the idea of my kids, as they get older, even my younger kids, we can go over to there, go over to Maverick McDonald's. You know, I was really hoping for the Walmart, the movie theater and all that within walking distance of my
So are the
home.
rest of us.
Yeah, for sure. So, as soon as I seen this on, you know, the agenda tonight for this high density, this very high density thing, it kills it for me. You know, I can't, you know, I don't want to have, I've been in Roy my whole life. I've chose to raise my kids here, and I just don't want that around my home or my children, so.
Answer the question on height. I believe, and I'd have to look at the code book, commercial allows for 40 feet, where R4 would only allow 35.
Well, for me, if it's a commercial building over there, and I ain't got people peering back over in my windows, I'm not as concerned as the back of a Home Depot, a Kohl's, or whatever, you know? It's gonna ruin the view either way. I'd rather have it something that I ain't got to worry about that,
Right.
you know?
And the single-family zones around there, they can have a 35-foot building as well, so it would be comparable to what's there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, no, you need to close the thing. I move that we close the public hearing.
Thank you. We have a second to closing the public hearing at this time?
I'll second. Since nobody else will.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any questions?
Of you?
I don't have any for you, but do you have any for me?
So,
Anybody have-
Mr. Parkinson, how would I phrase that to make the recommendation with townhomes versus apartments?
I'd probably put it in both motions, one for the general plan, you know, saying that it can be very high density, but prefer to have townhomes within it, and then same with the zoning.
Okay.
Again, just not putting words in your mouth. I recommend approval of, with the
Caveat.
caveat of that, plus the stuff in the zoning.
You're gonna have two
or the-
motions, right?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, Commissioner?
May I?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, I make a motion that we approve the, yes, the general plan, future land use map from commercial to very high density, multifamily residential with the caveat that it be townhomes as opposed to apartments for the property located at 4060 and 4088 South Midland Drive.
All in favor?
I'll second that.
After the second?
That's roll call.
Okay, roll call. I'm gonna get it right
We
one
get
of
you.
these days.
Commissioner Bills?
Aye.
Commissioner Karras?
Aye.
Commissioner Nandel?
Aye.
Commissioner Collins?
Nay.
Commissioner Payne?
Aye.
Mr. Brand?
Aye.
Commissioner Spar?
Aye.
Passes 6-1.
As to item B, do I have a motion?
Then I recommend approving the, changing the zoning map from, or I recommend approval of changing the zoning map from commercial to R4 multifamily residential with a caveat that it be townhouses as opposed to apartments for the property located at 4060 and 4088 South Midland Drive, with the conditions outlined in the staff report.
Second.
All in favor?
Vote.
Yep.
Roll call.
Commissioner Nandel?
Aye.
Commissioner Brand?
Aye.
Commissioner Collins?
Nay.
Commissioner Spar?
Aye.
Commissioner Payne?
Aye.
Commissioner Bills?
Aye.
Commissioner Karras?
Aye.
Passes 6-1. And then just let everybody in the audience know that this item will be on the March 6th City Council agenda.
Then we will proceed to item number 6. But before we go there, I want to tell the people who are in the audience that after we finish item 8, the staff update, I will give anybody who's here the opportunity to come up and make any comment they want, although we cannot take any official action on that comment period. So you'll get your chance to tell us what you want to tell us, and so will anybody else. We appreciate people coming to these meetings. We have asked for public participation over the last few years, and we need to give you an opportunity to tell us what's on your mind when you come. So that'll be the last thing on the agenda. We will now, I will entertain a motion for reelection of the vice chairman.
Reason for this is you guys voted for Joe Paul to be the vice chair, and a week later, he was put on the city council.
I nominate my friend over here, Jason Spar, for the vice chair position.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that. Well, go ahead.
I'll second it.
Mr. Payne.
Are there any other nominations for vice chair? There being none, we will vote.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any
All-
opposed? You can oppose it.
Besides Jason? No, okay. The ayes have it.
Okay.
The next item on the agenda is commission minutes. Are there any
Commissioner's minute.
commissioners' minutes? I know what it reads, but I was trying to be better. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Are there
No,
any
this is Commissioner's minute. This is our time to speak there, Mr. Chair. And I do have something that I want to go ahead and state here. So my term ends in June, the end of June, and I am not going to stay on the Planning Commission at that point in time, as I am building a house in North Ogden. So
So there
I will
you
be
go.
leaving at the end of June.
Okay.
But we have two alternates that would be more than happy to step up.
It's the only reason why I didn't throw it. You gave me a few months, and then I already have two, so.
There you go. So one or the other can
Yeah.
come on up here the end of June, so.
Okay, speaking of the alternates, I would like for each of them to stand up, please, and introduce yourself to members of the panel and to members in the audience.
I'd probably even have the two new ones that are up here.
Yeah.
We'll do that next.
Come on up to the mic.
Come up to the mic. Yeah, that's the
You
program.
can even turn it around if you want to face the audience. Oh, sure.
Anyway, my name's, excuse me, my name's Don Ashby. I've actually lived here my whole life, been here 50 years, so I'm excited to be a part of this and watched Roy grow for good and for bad, and I'm excited to be part of it.
We thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you.
My name is Ryan Cowley, and my wife and I moved here in 2003, and we love living in Roy. And I just feel like this is really a great time for Roy, where we have some unique opportunities for our city, and so it'll be fun to be involved in that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Also, I would like to introduce two new commissioners that are sitting up here tonight, and that's Commissioner Collins and Commissioner Bills. They were both appointed to replace people who left, i.e. Joe Paul, who's now on the city council, and our chair, who retired and is no longer with us. So thank you, both of you, for being here, and I hope you had as much fun as we did.
So how long have you guys been here?
Tell us about yourself, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Ladies first.
Thanks. So my name's Samantha Bills, and I've lived in Roy my whole life. I've worked in Roy, I taught school in Roy, and I bleed gold. That's it.
I've only lived here 3 years. My family moved here while I was over in Afghanistan overseas. We bought a house here. We moved up from Taylorsville. And just in that short amount of time, I also ran for city council last year. Obviously didn't get elected, but here I am. I still want to be part of the city because I do care a lot about it. I've got 6 kids at home, 2 out of the home, and all of them are ages from 7 to 15, so I have a very strong interest in the community and the schools and everything that happens here, and the direction that Roy heads for the future, because I've really grown attached to the community in this short amount of time, and I just want to make sure that continues for them. Thank you.
We
Appreciate it.
certainly appreciate you being willing to serve.
I just appreciate it.
Okay.
I'll just say for the first time, because we've gone through the process of trying to find planning commissioners, where I'm begging and pleading for people to do it, and I might get one application. This particular time, I had 4 positions, and I had 9 people apply.
Well, then I guess it'll be easier to find your next alternative once I leave.
Yep.
Good for you.
Yeah, congratulations.
So it was nice to see that.
All righty, then we'll move on to the staff report.
Actually, I got one that I'd like to bring up, Steve.
You're not quitting too, are you?
No, I'm not. I was just asked by my HOA to ask about the sidewalks and the repair of. Maybe do I need to get with you a little bit later, talking about what?
Yeah, I'm not sure what you're,
Because we got some sidewalks that are, they're cracking apart, and
Right.
the HOA's talked about needing to get them replaced, but they've been having an issue with trying to get them fixed either through the city, because I guess the city owns it.
yeah, I think your roads are city-owned, not privately owned. So the person to get with would probably be Ross Oliver. Have him come, at least identify those roads, and then he can start putting it into his capital investments plan to, put it on the list to repair. So as money comes or as time comes, they can put that on the list. They sometimes do have abilities to, go in halves with the homeowner if they want to kind of get it quicker. You provide the cement, they pour it and form it, but he's been able to get a lot done, so I would just get with him. I can get you his number and stuff. I'll just email it to you.
Great, yeah,
So.
I get that.
Any other questions by anybody else in the commission? Okay. Now we can proceed to Mr. Parkinson and give us a staff update.
Depending on what you want to know, I can answer those first
Anybody have questions of Mr. Parkinson?
on development that we've approved.
It's glad to see that all the improvements that's made back behind Burger Bar.
Surprisingly, it looks pretty good, just with nothing. So on that note, Sunridge Assisted Living Center, they're on 55, 56, across from Kent's. They had their pre-construction meeting a week and a half ago, so they should be moving more dirt and digging stuff. I think their building permit's just sitting there waiting for them to come and pay for it. Murphy Soap and Sud also had their site plan pre-construction meeting. We're just waiting for one more item so they can start digging. That's the one on 5500 South and 4300 West. And then Mountain Shine, which is behind Burger Bar, they have their pre-construction meeting on Thursday. So you'll have a lot of things starting to be constructed, which means less things for me to worry about, which means next meeting, which we will have at the end of the month, we'll have a work session to start talking about the Focus Roy plan and the items that they want us to start looking at. We'll also look at, just what we want, how we want it, and then, so if you can do some research, you two included, of other cities that may have mixed use or some sort of high density development of commercial and residential that you've seen, you've liked, please either let me know and I can go grab that ordinance, or if you want to grab it and send it to me, that'd be great, and I can disperse it amongst the rest of you. I have gone through a few cities already and grabbed theirs, so next meeting we'll sit down at the conference room and start banging out a zoning ordinance. Other than that, I think that's about it.
Okay. As I told you before, we invite the public to attend all of our meetings. We want to hear from the citizens of Roy. This is not on the agenda, but I'm going to open this up for anybody that wants to come up. Again, the same rule applies, and your name and your address, but you can tell us whatever is on your mind. However, we will not take any action on anything that's said tonight. It would have to be put on another agenda. So, ma'am, if you want to come up again?
Natalie Batten, 3903 West, 6000 South, questionable. I don't know what just happened during the discussion of agenda number 3 and 4. You discussed us and our grandfather rule, but where did we get placed? I also heard you say we create an island, therefore, are you pulling us into Roy City when they annex, or are we a peninsula and not touching that property, and we can stay where we're at, where we want to be in Hooper? What happened? I don't know where we ended up.
Well, on the motion, they recommended approval to the city council. Both Hooper City and Roy City are in the process of doing what's called a boundary line adjustment between the two cities. So if you look at the screen, if we annex both in the Patterson property and the Yeoman property, those 7 parcels become islands.
How do they? We don't touch their property. There's a road between us. That's
But the
a
road,
peninsula.
it doesn't matter if it's a UDOT road, a Roy City road, or a Hooper City road.
An island is isolated.
Yeah,
We do
that-
not-
exactly as the map
We
shows.
are not isolated.
So what part is not being annexed in that would keep you as a peninsula?
What part is that?
I don't know, that's what I'm asking you, because
The
you're saying you
road.
would not be.
If there is a road, which is property.
Right.
Even though it's paved, it's property.
Not on-
Yeoman's and the property to the west is on the south side. I'm on the north side. When you annex them in, I am not an island, because there is ground, land, that is not Roy City, not Weber County, hopefully state, but our properties do not join when you annex them in. We still don't touch that property because there's a road. So how do I become an island and forced into Roy?
Yeah, she's in those 4 parcels that are next to each other. Well, when you look at the zoning map or any
It
maps
looks
that
like our properties touch when I look at that.
I provide,
That's
They
correct.
don't
the westernmost property, Roy owns, and Weber County GIS map shows that the boundary line between Hooper and Roy is the south side of 6,000. So all of 6,000 on that portion of those 4 lots, and what is it, 4250 west, is already a part of Roy. Then you have the 1 parcel, I can't remember who owns that, that's part of Hooper. Then you have the 2 dark green parcels that are, colored dark green. Again, the Weber County GIS map shows that the south side is the dividing line between Hooper and Roy.
That's Price.
So once you start doing that, and the Patterson property becomes part of Roy, you create, he's an island all by itself. Roy would then have incorporated both the 2 parcels that are dark green, the parcel that's light green.
They're already Roy City.
Right. But now all of the road is already, in those 2 sections, part of Roy City. According to Weber's,
So when you annex in Yeoman's and the other property, you're calling that, it's going to become a Roy City road, just like they're annexing into Roy City. Is that what you're saying to me?
well, the county already shows 6,000 south in Roy City, west of that first western parcel, and east of that first parcel of Hooper. I wish I had a pointer that could point it out. Then as you get towards your property and the 3 others that are contiguous to each other, that's where Hooper starts having part of the road in quote-unquote their city. So if Patterson's property becomes Patterson's and Yeoman's become part of Roy, you have 2 distinct islands that occur. So in essence, with Patterson's property requesting to be annexed in, you're being forced to come with them.
Okay. I've lived in Roy City, and I know exactly how many islands you have because of opposition of not wanting to come in. And they are islands, but they have not come into Roy City.
Part of unincorporated Weber County, you are correct.
So who do I get down on my knees and plead with to let me be the exception and stay out of Roy City?
It'd be
Which one
both,
of you do I get down on my knees?
it'd be both Hooper City Council and Roy City Council. There's two different distinct things that happen with the unincorporated Weber County and the difference in Hooper City / Roy City in this area. As those unincorporated islands were being developed, the state law allowed them to stay unincorporated. However, the law has changed where the county can force those islands into Roy City. And we're already in negotiations with those islands of how zoning should occur and how their non-conforming rights and animal rights can continue. That won't take effect, it won't become part of Roy City until January 1st of 2019. So they already know it's coming. And this is a different aspect where Hooper City and Roy City are going to change the boundary lines so it's just square like this, and then those islands are brought in. You do have, again, you continue to have the rights to petition to not come into Roy. And I've got your letter, and
I do have.
I'm going to
a
mispronounce it again. Elam?
It's on file,
And I have it right here.
yes.
And I will take, if all 7 of them come and give me a petition, then I sit down with the attorney and say, okay, here we've got all these petitions not to. What does state law allow? Is there enough opposition to force Patterson's not to come in, or is there not? I have to look at state code when it comes to that aspect. And then follow state code.
So the city council's where you need to go.
Pardon me?
Both city councils.
City councils is where
So
you.
I need to go get on their agenda and get on your agenda?
Correct.
Which meeting do I need to get on yours?
March 20th is where this item would be brought to the city council.
And,
Roy City. Hooper is either the Thursday before or the Thursday after. I don't know.
you know, I only see 2 names on the deed to my place. It's my husband and mine. I didn't realize I had so many people that could control my property. Amazing.
Come on up. Again, state your name.
Bruce Elam. I apologize for asking for a point of information after you'd already closed the public hearing, but I wanted the information to be given by the developer. Obviously, he was not aware of the previous plat which was designed, and encouraged possibly the commission to possibly research that out further. The actual plot that was approved by Hooper City actually only had 38 lots. They were 1/3 to 1/2 acre zones, which was approved by Hooper City. And so in effect, we've gone and taken the community which was approved and scrunched it down into, I don't know how many, 65. And so it changes our community in that way. So we'll be presenting that to the city council when it goes to the city council.
Good.
And making sure that and that was my fault for not presenting that to begin with, but.
Thank you.
But I wanted to thank you for entertaining the animal rights. That's a big part of our lifestyle out in that area. And maintaining those would be very important to the way we live, so, thank you.
And just to clarify, I know originally when it was going to Hooper City, the developer was Colby Bond and KW Advisory. So they were going through it, and then they sold it to Woodside Homes. So the original stuff was done by a different person. Woodside just bought the property thinking that it was all approved to go through Hooper, and then ran into this issue.
Again, name and address.
Justin Schinzel, 3901 West, 6000 South. My only question's gonna be, so we're upfront and clear right here and right now, we don't want another Farmington City issue. There's no curb, gutter, and sidewalk in front of any of our properties. Is Roy City, as soon as they take us over, gonna supply and pay for that infrastructure? Or is that gonna be kicked over as homeowners to us, as they tried to do in Farmington City? I already have an attorney on retainer, and they're willing to look into that. And
As in on 6,000 South?
yes,
It would all stay the same until you decide to, say you have enough room to subdivide the land and you sell your home and the land next to you, and then you want to
so
quote-unquote
the
develop it.
city's, So the city's willing to have one side that's got curb, gutter, and sidewalk, and then the other side just be a barren park strip?
Well, on the south side, if Yeomans and Patterson's develop,
Exactly,
they will have curb, gutter, and
That's what
sidewalk.
I'm asking, yes.
And then,
So-
but it's not uncommon, there are other sections of the city that, parts that aren't developed or were already developed when the neighborhoods come next to them, that still don't have curb,
And
gutter,
that
or
won't fall
sidewalk.
into any SWIP violation?
Because it's existing. Minute you change the development, say you wanted to subdivide and build new homes, then it would kick in.
Okay, all right, that's just.
Yeah,
was my
3100
concern.
West.
I just want to make sure that all of a sudden, Roy City decides, oh, we want to finish off this road, that we don't get another Farmington City, and then we're all on Get Gephardt and so on and so forth.
If the city
because
wanted to
that's
do
where
it,
we'll end up.
they should do it.
Exactly. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
Any other comments? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Chelsea King. I live on 2554 West, 4000 South. On Agenda 5, I just want to know where we go from here. Is it the city council?
Yes, ma'am.
As to where we can petition for the,
Yes, ma'am. And he gave you the date, you have the date?
I don't, that's what I'm asking for. I
Was
didn't-
that the one on Midland? Yeah. March 6th.
March 6th, thank you. I don't know, and I want to thank Mr. Collins for supporting me. As a parent and a teacher myself, my number one concern is my children and that road. Unfortunately, if this doesn't go through, it's so sad to say that we might not be members of Roy City anymore, because that is just too dangerous, but thank you for your time.
I just want everybody to know that we make the recommendations to the council. It is the council that has the authority to do this or not. So you have another opportunity.
But you made the recommendation.
Yes, ma'am.
For increased speed and all that stuff.
no.
Well, not increased speed, but increase velocity or whatever you want to call capacity on that road where it's already dangerous for so many children.
We understand what you're saying. I want to make one more comment. Mrs. Yeoman, a while ago, I thought, put forth what this planning commission does every time we do here, and that is, this is always a balancing of a particular rights, or the rights a particular homeowner has versus the rights of the people that surround that. Basically, a homeowner can do what they want with their property as long as it's within the guidelines that have been set, zoning instances, building requirements, and that kind of thing. And there are always differences of opinion. And I really do appreciate everybody coming out. So thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, I do want to make another statement too. Especially when all these things come up, I actually do drive and walk these properties. So everything you see on the agenda that I get it beforehand. And so I do actually walk those properties, and I actually do drive past them.
Do you sit there for, I'm just asking, I'm not.
Yes, ma'am, I do actually.
Sit there for an extensive period of time?
Not extensive, but usually 10 to 15 minutes.
Okay, because you're missing quite a bit, especially during.
We don't know everything. I mean, contrary to popular opinion, we don't know everything.
I'm not saying you do, but, I'm glad to go out there and do that, and that's awesome.
Yes.
But have you gone there at a train time?
Yes, I live not far from there.
I don't know any car besides myself and my husband that actually do 30 miles an hour down that road, and we get honked at constantly. Just saying. But I appreciate you going down and looking at that. I really
Thank you.
Yeah, they either come up to the microphone or not.
Yes. Sorry, anybody coming up? No? Then I will entertain.
Oh,
we
she's
do,
one.
yes, okay. I'm not trying to shortchange you, I just need action.
So mine is kind of related, but not.
We need name and.
Oh, Caitlin Hunt, 2653 West,
Thank you.
3900 South. So I live like by the Midland one, which is why I'm here. And like, I oppose the high density thing. But I understand there's reasons why, I get all that. But Roy City citizens talk all the time about wanting more businesses here and, less of the housing. And I agree with that. I also understand that we have to get businesses that want to be here and we have to have the people to support them. I understand all that. So my question is, I'm totally new to all of this. I just heard this meeting was here, so I wanted to come find out what happens. What do you guys do to bring businesses here? Do you go seek them out? Or do you just wait for someone to come here and say like, oh, this sounds good, they want to build this? I'm just wondering what the process is, and do we have advocates for us looking for what we want? Or do we just wait for someone to come in and say, we want to do this, and then we're like, yes or no?
Uh-huh.
The answer is yes.
Yes to what?
All of it.
90% of it is the land developer is the one that's bringing in the business. There are certain areas, especially downtown Roy, 1900 West, 5300 South to the southern area where we are looking for. You know, on 3500 West or Midland Drive and those commercial areas, we're not seeking development. The landowners are. So when Mr. Heiner says, you know, I can't find a big box to come because it's too small, or I can't find a medium box because it's too big, they're the ones researching it. But again, the city is actively trying to find stuff for downtown Roy to try to build that up first and then would go out. We don't have a full-time person doing it. We do have a contracted employee that, you know, part-time again, does some of the stuff and kind of guides us on what we need to do and who we need to talk to. But with the new mayor, it's a little bit more. He is calling people and saying, hey, can I sit down with you and let's talk? Nothing against Willard Cragen. I really enjoyed him. He wasn't doing that. So yes and no.
Okay, so what, I'm just curious.
No, you're good.
What do you guys do?
This body is.
Do you just come here and vote on these things, or
Yeah.
do you, what do you do in the meantime?
Pretty much.
That's the city council does more of the active.
Yeah, the
I
state
see.
requires every city to have a planning commission. In essence, they have two hats. Like rezones, general plan amendments, ordinance changes. This body reviews it and is a recommending body to the council. So they just review it on a land use type scenario because they're more land use development oriented. City council is the one that says, yeah, let's amend the general plan, yeah, let's amend the zoning ordinance, or yeah, let's amend the zoning map. As development comes, like the car washes and stuff, our zoning ordinance requires planning commission approval. So they'll look at it, does it meet the zoning ordinance, the number of parking stalls, the amount of landscaping, building design, and what have you. Then they will act and approve it as is, or as presented if there isn't major things that need to do. So they're really between a rock and a hard spot. They have to stay on the line. They have to have, if law says you can have a car wash, they can't say no to the car wash. So that's where the zoning ordinance comes in, is it's got to, if we don't want car washes anymore, someone's got to amend the zoning ordinance to no longer allow car washes in commercial zones.
And you do that, or because like we're getting 3 car washes? Like, why
Right.
do we need 3 car washes?
Anybody
But-
can petition that. I haven't been directed from the council to do that.
Okay.
But, you know, you as a citizen say, hey, I just want the zoning ordinance to not allow this anymore, you can petition to do that. And then I would take it to this body, they would look at it, look at, you know, the good and the bad, and then say, okay, we make our recommendations for or against, then it would go to the council and they would look at it as well. So, a lot of people think that they pass things just because, they just gotta look at it, what does the law state, what can I do? Where the council, like on a general plan amendment, zoning request, they can just say, I don't like it, therefore, no. This body has to have facts and reasons why. So if they can't figure out why they don't want it, there should be something behind it. So,
Thank you.
no problem.
Welcome. Yes, ma'am, come on.
There's, Brian Saxton and Joe Paul are on a committee that have asked on Facebook group what citizens want, and they made a bunch of suggestions.
Okay, that's a private conversation.
Are the
For 2 weeks?
Glenda Moore,
Thank you.
2088 West, 3825 South
Just let me
Roy.
know.
And no comments about what's gone on, but are the work planning committees, your meetings, are they open to the public too?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
2 weeks from now.
Okay, cool, thanks.
That 2 weeks from now is just a work session, so it's not necessarily open for public comment.
Okay, but we
But you're,
You can
yes,
attend.
you're invited to attend, and while,
You can sit there and listen. Yeah.
It's actually in the conference room across the hall.
Actually, it's in the conference room downstairs.
Oh, downstairs, I'm sorry.
downstairs now.
The mayor took our old conference room.
Oh, okay.
Shame on the mayor.
But the new conference room is much bigger.
Oh, okay.
So-
I didn't know about that.
It accommodates
good.
probably another 15 to 20
Perfect.
people. So
Great.
Well,
For
we
the other
only,
one,
forward
it
to
was
seeing
like
it.
6 or 7.
we only have a few people. If there's anybody else.
If not,
Being none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make the motion that we adjourn.
second, go ahead.
Somebody second it.
Adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. We're adjourned. Thank you for being
Mandel and
here.
Karis?
Thank you for your help.
This is the one I always forget and have to guess.
I tried to.
I
was trying to keep you on the
Okay.
not the, Mr. Chairman. But I didn't want to take over, you know what I'm saying? So I was trying to be too bossy.
Does she have a hard time finding people?
So,
So what do you do? It's for tickets.
I work in the
yeah. Yeah, no, so I just figured that would be easiest for me to,
Yeah.
to help you there. And then, as I said, with me, moving North Ogden, have Jason be your vice chairman.
Jody's great.
Jill likes to hire more moms so we can keep the college kids.
So since I'm moving to
The other 5
since I'm yeah. Well, me and my wife, we were looking at numbers, and we were like, oh, you know, we have a lot of equity. $100,000 of equity. And we're like,
Now's the time, maybe.
no, and so we
You
went
know,
to talk to the
the
builder,
item
and they
that
were
I have
like,
to
well, Bryce,
The difference between the planning commission
we went over to Ivory.
City
And Ivory's
council
like,
person, anybody can come and talk with
Wait.
you about any project.
you wanna build a house with $350,000? I'm like, yeah, and I'm putting up 150 right now. They're like, hey, okay.
I can't talk with you. If they
So-
do proceed, you do have a conversation when they do the declaration of conflict, and you
And they
announce
said,
that, and then you'll be excused.
yes, we can do that.
That's the biggest difference.
We can work with those numbers.
We call it,
And so we're gonna build a much bigger house than we have now. You know, the kitchen has an
After the
open
meeting, yeah,
floor
you can
plan,
talk.
cause we like to entertain.
Have you built a house before?
you can talk about.
Nope.
If it's something that's tabled,
Do you have to get the wish lawyer on retainer?
I'm letting my wife make all the decisions, so.
Okay, then find out if she has one on retainer. It's a way stressful thing.
Well, actually, the way Ivory doesn't actually make a lot of the decisions for you. You just have
Oh,
to-
you're gonna build within an Ivory development, you're gonna buy it within an Ivory and have them build to your specs.
They're building, yes, they're building, well, they use their plan and then we,
And then you.
then we
I
can
live
modify
in
it a
an
little bit.
Ivory development.
But that's what, yeah, that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
So, and so, yeah, they're gonna,
Do you have an HOA in it?
HCR 10,
no,
and that is
I
statewide
will,
resource management
but,
plan. Passed first.
Sympathetic to him
Bill, statewide
when
resource management fund.
Ivory developed the one
I
that I
encourage
made.
everyone to go to
The city,
state website.
in their infinite
This
wisdom,
bill
required us to
basically
own the
is going to
sidewalks
take
and the
power away
streetlights.
from local entities.
And so the answer is, yeah, the sidewalks broken, we gotta fix it.
So basically,
for,
you've already adapted your plan. Okay,
Cool.
so the plan,
But,
the Roy
hang on,
City
I'll
plan
show
will
you
go to
something
a
real quick
commission
here.
at a state level. And
So they're gonna take zoning
they're
privileges?
taking away your power. Of course, you'll still be meeting.
I don't know why a state would do that.
You don't know what's happening at the state level, at state government.
that's what we're
Wow.
gonna
They
build, but it'll
are
have a
all
three-car
over the
garage.
place, they're taking
Okay.
away
And
local
then that's
power.
our back,
Each-
that'll be our
That
back.
all-
House
that's
Bill
it.
what,
Yeah.
249?
It's been happening, it happened last year.
Yeah, something we don't have right now.
That's something you don't have, until somebody moves in behind you, like.
Actually, there's not going to be